Good morning. It's good to be here on a really lovely spring day. My name is Ted O'Toole, and my talk title today is Parenting as Zen Practice, Mindfulness, Mystery, and Letting Go. So 2 weeks ago, some of you were here. I talked about things like devotion and surrender, and during the discussion, these examples from parenting kept coming up. Maybe because there were quite a few parents here because we had our children's and teens programs going, as we do today. And someone suggested that I do a talk on parenting, and I thought, that's a good idea, I'll do that. I have some experience with Zen, I have some experience with parenting, so I'll talk about that. And the more I thought about the topic and the more I read about what other Buddhist teachers have said about it, the more I realized that it's really a vast subject. So in an effort to narrow it down, I'm going to follow a kind of a simple structure. And I'm going to first talk about how to bring Zen practice to parenting in a conventional sense. And then I'm going to talk about how to erase the boundary between practice and parenting in order to see that they're the same thing. So parents, I think, need Zen practice, and the Zen community needs parents in it. Sometimes in some places it can happen, and it's kind of sad that someone may be practicing intensely at a Zen center, and then they become a parent, and they no longer have the time and energy to come to the center. And maybe there isn't really programming at the center that includes their families, so they just kind of disappear while they're raising children. And we do not want that to happen. We need parents in the community because Zen practice, at least here at MZMC, is about being active in the world. It's not about being isolated from the world. And who knows more about the challenges of practice while being immersed in the world than parents? So we need them. So because I have to narrow it down today, I might talk a little bit about how to raise kids in a way that promotes Buddhist values, and maybe a little bit about how to provide Buddhist values to parenting. But what I'd really like to focus on is how you, as a parent, can maintain a Zen practice while parenting. But this talk isn't only for parents. My ideas about how this messy life is your practice and is not separate from your practice is something that applies to everyone. And also, of course, this is not just about biological parents or traditional nuclear families. I don't have narrow ideas about who raises kids. People sometimes ask me, how many kids do you have? And believe it or not, this is a very difficult question for me. Because every time I'm asked that, I have to ask myself, well, do I want to give them the long version or the short version? Because my wife, Kathy, and I have a large blended family, and I have a biological son and biological grandchildren. I have stepchildren and step-grandchildren, and we've raised other children who have come into our lives. So I have maybe something like 14 children and grandchildren, at least in my mind and in my heart, and biology doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. So the word parent encompasses a lot of different kinds of experience. We have single parents, we have shared custody, grandparents raising grandchildren, people helping to raise nieces and nephews, and neighbors. We have non-traditional families of all kinds. One thing I love about Pete the Cat, which is one of my grandson Louie's favorite shows, and I've mentioned it before, is that Sally Squirrel, whom I've also mentioned before, has 2 dads. There are all kinds of families, and everyone was raised by someone, so this talk is for everybody. So, maintaining your practice while parenting. Now, I think I know why you wanted this talk. You want tips, as in, give me something I can do. Maybe just one little thing. I'm overwhelmed here. So, and it is overwhelming. I remember reading a long time ago, reading a book about parenting, about raising babies, and the woman who wrote the book said, when my own baby was born, every plant I had in the house died. I didn't have the time and energy to even look at the plants, much less water them. And it can be like that. You know, we admire people who climb Mount Everest or people who go to live in a monastery for 3 years. But I'll tell you, taking care of a baby, raising a child, dealing with teenagers, these are incredibly heroic activities that stretch us to the limit. And we don't usually recognize that because so many people do it. It's so common, but these are nearly impossible tasks. No one is ready for it. No one is in control. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone sees their high ideals eroded over time, I think. I remember before my son was born, I said, my son's never going to watch TV. And after he'd been here a while, I would order him to sit down and watch TV. So I'll try to mix in some tips, and if one little tip works for you, I'll be happy. So, part 1, Zen practice in a conventional sense. When you have children, it can be very difficult to sit in Zazen at home. I think that the key, if there is one, is to give up some of your ideas about how Zazen should look. If your ideal is sitting a certain amount of time in a certain place at the same time each day, that may not happen, so you may need to adjust your expectations. Maybe a regular schedule is simply not possible. You have to get it when you can get it. So maybe it happens during nap time, maybe after the kids go off to school, maybe it's just a few minutes here and there. Maybe you can ask your partner or your friend or your oldest child to watch your kids and give you 15 minutes a day. And also maybe sitting is not sitting in a traditional posture. Maybe it's sitting in a chair, maybe it's lying down, maybe it's while holding the baby. If we have walking meditation, why can't we have holding the baby meditation and all kinds of meditation? And maybe you can sit with your kids. The littlest kids, they can maybe sit a minute or two, but it's something and it sets things up for later. My grandson Louis, who's 4, can sit for maybe 30 seconds really well. And we're working on it. We're going for a minute. But more important, I think, than sitting, especially with small kids, is that you can enter with them into that ritual space and you can really share it. And little kids naturally take to ritual. They just get it, I think. And we'll go to my home altar and we'll bow to the Buddha and we'll sit for a few seconds and he'll look at the things on my altar and I put things on there that will appeal to him. And he gets into that very quiet space. And sometimes I bring him here and he likes to ring all of the bells and we'll sit at the Doan station, which is normally over here, and he'll do the Mokugyo and the bells. And he'll say, sing that song again. So I do it. Avalokiteshvara. And we'll go on for a really long time. And he gets into this kind of quiet, rhythmic meditation space. It's very nice. And a lot of parents are able to actually sit with their older kids. If you don't push it too much, maybe you kind of invite it. You do it for a little while. It's certainly something you can try out. And I would encourage parents, I know it's hard, to keep coming to Zen Center when you can. Sometimes partners trade off the child care, so one partner can come to Zen Center or one partner can do a retreat. Zoom can help a lot because you can practice at home while Zoom is on, and if you're not able to give it your full attention, you're not going to disturb anyone here. And I'm so happy that we have a children's program here now and that it's doing really well. When I first came here, which was 32 years ago, the primary thing I came here for was the children's program. I would come once a month, and it was taught over in the old Zendo by Norm Randolph. And my son Dylan was 5 or 6 at that time, and it was great. And now today we have a program for small children, which is going on the 3rd floor right now, and one for teens, which is going on the 2nd floor. And these programs have been under the guidance of Mark Turbach, and he's done an incredible job. And I think this is the best children's program we've had in my memory, which is saying quite a lot. And I hope it grows in the future. I hope we can keep providing it. We're somewhat limited by the space we have here, and we're limited by our volunteer time, because it takes a tremendous amount of grown-up effort to pull this off, and we rely entirely on volunteers. But it makes me so happy when the kids are in the building, and it contributes so much to that kind of family feeling that we have here sometimes. And yeah, and it makes me so happy that one of the kids, who I can remember teaching here when he was 7 years old, is now grown up, and he's now assisting us teaching the little kids. So there's this continuity over generations. And you can help too, if you're a parent, by consistently attending, because everyone needs to make this a priority if we're going to really pull it off. Part 2, parenting is Zen practice. This goes to the heart of the matter. Of course, if we think that we have our Zen practice on the one hand, and that's something we do when we're formally engaged in Buddhism, formally thinking, I am now practicing. Then on the other hand, we have the rest of our life where we're caring for our children and our finances and our job and doing all those other things. And we think of that as not being Zen practice. That kind of sets up a kind of a duality. You could say, well, we're practicing despite our children, rather than engaging in Zen practice through our children. And yeah, and that's kind of dualistic. There's no judgment here because this happens to all of us. But that kind of dualistic thinking kind of goes against the spirit of Zen, because Zen is all about being vividly alive and present in this very moment of Zen practice. So there's nothing that isn't Zen practice if we're really paying attention. It's easy to think that there are times when we practice and times when we don't. We're aware we're practicing when we're engaged in our formal practice, but if we're arranging pickup and drop-off schedules with the kids, or changing diapers, or we're in the midst of a teenage meltdown, it's not so easy to see that as practice. But it can be done. It can be done. And a lot of Zen teachers have said this to a lot of parents: parenting is your practice now. So it's not so easy, so let's not have high expectations that we're going to suddenly change and never have that boundary again. That just makes a new boundary between who we are and who we think we should be. Let's just think about becoming more mindful of parenting as practice, or some other aspect of our life as practice. This is kind of a dim bulb, back burner sort of thing, and we gain on it ever so slightly over time. And raising children is, believe it or not, the perfect Zen practice. Jack Kornfield says, parenting is a labor of love. It's a path of service and surrender, and, like the practice of a Buddha or Bodhisattva, it demands patience and understanding and tremendous sacrifice. And you may have heard people say, your children are your teachers. As Pema Chodron might say, they present you with everything you need to wake up. So if you follow the parental path, you're following the Buddha path, whether you believe it or not. And you may feel like you're missing out on real Zen practice, but a lot of this has to do with accepting your own circumstances, accepting the path you're on. Someday that path will change, and you'll be able to spend more time here again. But for now, you're at this stage. In Hinduism, traditionally, there are 4 stages of life: student, householder, forest dweller, and renunciate. So householder is a step in your practice. It's not an interruption in your practice. So I've identified 3 ways in which parenting is a doorway to Zen practice. 3 ways in which parenting is ideal Zen practice. And those ways are mindfulness, mystery, and letting go. So first, mindfulness. Mindfulness, of course, is a great doorway to Zen practice because it's about seeing reality as it really is, as opposed to seeing reality through the distorted lens of your own needs and desires. When you see reality as it really is, it takes you out of yourself, you give yourself up, you are more free. And ironically, as I said in my talk 2 weeks ago, there is this irony of surrender, that by giving up your preferences, you're more likely to see your preferences realized. I'd like to read a little quotation here from Nadine Levy from the Nan Tien Institute. She wrote an article called "Try Parenting the Buddhist Way. Drop your expectations and go with the flow." She says, "In Buddhism, all goals and ideals are to be held lightly. The invitation is to work with reality as it presents itself moment by moment. Aspects of our lives may not be what we like or want, and parenthood can sometimes be sharp and unpleasant. It can challenge who we think we are and give rise to complex emotional and physical states. It can also be sublime and joyous. Yet it is in our most trying moments that we gain insight into ourselves, relationships, and life itself. Parenting is fertile ground for the development of meaning through care and connection and a deeper understanding of the mysterious and precious nature of this fleeting human life." So I'm using the term mindfulness in a certain way here. We have mindfulness practices we can be taught, like how to mindfully do the dishes or mindfully get your child dressed, really pay attention, really be there, really work with them. But right now I'm talking about mindfulness of your entire situation. Are you really seeing your children for who they are? Are you really seeing yourself for who you are? Are you aware of your own reactions and your filters and your habit energies? And the great thing about children is that they bring out your habitual reactions and energies all the time. So they present constant opportunities for practice. So say you take your kids to the Science Museum, and you've brought a couple of their friends too, because that was a good idea at the time. It sounded fun. And you get there, and maybe they've been eating sugar all morning, and they're just wild, and you realize you're in way over your head. And you're lucky if you can keep them all on the same floor of the museum and know where they are. And you don't have time to monitor them, and like every kid wants to shoot the tennis balls, and conflicts arise, but you can't be there all the time. And forget about, helping them with something educational. It's just not going to happen. So it's really chaotic. So what is mindfulness in that situation? Well, it's awareness of your own reactions. Even though so much is going on, if you can keep about 10% of your attention on what's going on with you, which could be anxiety, could be panic, could be anger, bemused acceptance, whatever it is, and also you can see how rapidly you go from one state of a mind to another, then you are mindfully present. And I like that phrase, bemused acceptance, because it implies acknowledgement of the chaos and a little bit of standing back to take it in without judgment. Nadine Levy also says that parenting chips away at the idea that we have full control of our lives. And she says, from a Buddhist perspective, the erosion of our sense of control is a positive thing. It invites a spirit of surrender and trust towards the flow of what is. And the quicker we can learn this lesson, the easier things become. So recognizing that you aren't fully in control, and those other families you see at the museum, they're not fully in control either. No family is perfect, despite all those perfect pictures they put on Facebook. That may help to bring you more kindness to yourself, more kindness to your kids, more kindness to others in this situation. And then we have seeing your kids for who they really are. 2 weeks ago, someone asked me for an example of something, and I thought of how my son, something that really opened my eyes was when we had the choice as to whether to send him to school early or late because he was right on the cusp with his birthday. And I decided it would be better to send him to school earlier because I remembered myself, I thought that would have been good for me because of the way my academic interests, and I was kind of academically advanced, and I thought it would be good for him. And it turned out to not be so good for him. He was always the youngest kid in his class, and that had an effect socially, and he had different kinds of talents than I did. Not quite the same academic bent, but really brilliant musically and when it came to acting and things like that, things I could never do. But he was different. He was different. And I realized after a while that, I should not have assumed he was going to be like me. And I vowed not to make assumptions about who he was. And I vowed to not try to make him into something he was not. I would present him with all opportunities, but I would not try to force him down any particular path. So our kids are so different from each other. They're so different from us. It's really incredible. Some kids are really rash. Some kids are really deliberate. Some have special needs. Some are on the autism spectrum, and they see the world in a fundamentally unique way. And sometimes they just don't like to be like their parents. I volunteered a lot at a youth center when I lived in Northfield, and I thought, dealing with all of the teens there, that often one of the biggest problems that they had was getting pressure from their parents to be something they didn't want to be. And their parents were well-meaning, and of course some guidance is very important, and you don't want to close off any possibilities, but it can get to the point where it's too controlling. So we try to see them. Again and again, we try to see them for who they are. And I say this not to admonish anyone, because we're all trying, but I've learned this from my own mistakes. So the thing I want to emphasize today is that you can go through your parenting life with that 10% back burner awareness of, this is how I'm reacting, this is how my expectations get in the way of really seeing my kid, this is my kid in front of me, and now they've changed since yesterday, and I really want to see them as they are now. So, second is mystery. And this was suggested to me by Jack Kornfeld in his very short article, Parenting as Practice. He said that parenting is a way to reconnect with the mystery of life and to reconnect with ourselves. Young children have that sense of mystery. And it's true. You get that sense when you see the kids at the altar. I've taught a lot of little kids Zen, and it seems like they always relate to being at the altar and bowing and things. A great activity is you make an altar and you gather things and put them on it. And they just easily and naturally kind of fall into that space. And it seems to have an element of respect for mystery, because their lives are just one big mystery. They don't know how things work. They're learning all the time, but they have something that we've lost, and they can teach that to us. And I just want to tell you something about mystery. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before, because it's a very important story for me. It's a highly personal story, but it seems like that's what I tend to do, is I tend to share personal stuff. And this is about when my son was born. So this was about 41 years ago. It was a long labor. My wife and I were in the hospital for a long time. A lot of time passed. I didn't even know what time of day it was or anything. And it went on, and it was really hard. I mean, hard for me. Imagine what it was like for her. And when finally it happened, when finally the moment of birth happened, which was the most dramatic moment of my life, without a doubt, I cried. I mean, I really cried. I mean, I like bawled out loud. I had no idea that I had so much pent-up emotion. But when it happened, I was just like overwhelmed. And the doctor was there, and she's trying to do her job, and the nurse is trying to do her job, and I'm sure she was thinking, get this guy out of here. But they didn't make me leave, and I calmed down after a while. And my wife held the new baby for quite a long time, and then I got to hold him. And I think I got to hold him for about an hour. And of course, he was so tiny. But that was like the most remarkable hour because of the look on his face, the quiet, peaceful, calm look on his face, which I can try to use words to describe, but it's really indescribable. I felt like he had come to us from across the universe somewhere. I felt like all of the universe was in his face. He looked like an old man, not a little baby. And it just looked like everything was there. Like everything was there, and it had come into and informed this little guy. And like the whole universe is still in him. He's not really quite a separate thing yet, And then later he moves toward that separateness. That happens inevitably. So, and I felt something so deep there, something connected to rebirth. Not literally, I think. I don't really subscribe to that literally, but something about that. Something about things coming together, informing this sort of temporary illusion of separateness, and then in the end it will return again to that beautiful, interconnected nothingness. He had come from a beautiful place, and he would return to that beautiful place someday, and it would still be beautiful. And then, 32 years later, my son had his own kids. He had 2 boys. And his second son, Soren, when he was born, there was this photograph taken of my son. I have it here for inspiration. And it's a close-up of his face. And he's got that same look on his face, holding his little newborn son. The same look he had when I was looking at him as a baby, and probably the same look I had looking at him. And my ex-wife said, in that picture, you can just see right into his soul. And it's true. But I think you can see right into the soul of the entire universe. So I keep this picture on the wall above my altar at home, right next to the Buddha. Don't anyone try to tell me that parenting is not about practice, and that picture should not be there. Because all you can do in light of this great mystery, this connection to all of space and time, is to just stand back in awe. That's all you can do. And maybe shake your head like there are no words here. There is no understanding. There is just this beautiful, incredible thing. There is this interconnectedness that sometimes we get to see a little bit. And you can live your life in such a way that respects this mystery. You can live with skill and compassion and devotion. You can hold every aspect of this mystery as sacred. And children give this to you. You don't have to come to the Zendo to experience this. to have this kind of a practice. Number 3 is letting go. I left the hardest one for last. Letting go, in the sense of not trying to control things you can't control, is essential to Zen practice. But how can you possibly apply this to children? Because, of course, we never really let them go, right? The bond is so strong. We just can't do that. I mean, you can feel it. It's like there's a psychological umbilical cord. When they're in the back seat and you're driving, you feel them back there, right? You're aware. You're vigilant at all times. When they're not there and they're with somebody else, you're like, shouldn't I be connected with them back there? You can feel it when they're halfway across the country away. It's like this physical bond. It's like a physical longing. And actually, we can't let go of our kids even if we want to. If your kids aren't grown up yet, I have news for you. There's a very good chance that they'll spend a significant amount of their 20s living in your basement. And so we can't really let them go, but at the same time, we really need to let them go. And it has to do with interdependence. Parenting chips away at our idea that we have full control of our lives. If we truly respect interdependence, we see all the influences that other people have on our children. It's not all our show. We're the biggest part of the show, but so many things are influencing them. They're influenced by our own extended families. We're especially aware of this if we're not living with our child's other parent. They're hugely influenced by school and their friends. This is something that immigrant families experience so strongly, the way their children adapt to the new culture so readily. And we see eventually as they get older that they are their own person. As I said, I learned to understand that my son was not just like me. A little surprisingly, now that he's about 40, he seems to grow more and more like me all the time. And we really think about things in the same way, and we're so much alike. He had a bumper sticker on his minivan that said, "I used to be cool." So showing us how we need to let go, how we need to recognize interdependence, is another way our children teach us. And it's a lifelong teaching that we hold like a koan, and it is really the essential koan of Zen. How is it that we recognize that we don't have full control in any sense, that we can't even understand everything, and yet we do our very best at all times to make it better? Well, the answer is seeing what we control when our help is needed, and seeing when we can't, and backing off and letting them flourish. And that may be the greatest gift that we can give, and that's a gift that they in turn can give to their own children. So how do you know when to hang on and when to let go? Well, that's our practice, to just hold that question every day in each new situation that arises. And that's the end of my talk, and we have a little bit of time here, so I'd love to hear from some of you. Katie.
One of the things that steered me towards Zen was when my sister had kids, and visiting them I found rather stressful because it was so much chaos, and I wasn't used to that. But one time I went to visit them, and I read a Thich Nhat Hanh book on the way to visit them. And the visit was so much more peaceful when I could just see things as they are, instead of trying to control them.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Dom.
I am not a parent, but I have parents. And when you talked about parents kind of trying to make their kids something they're not, one of those things for me was my parents trying to very much introduce Christianity to me. And what I've found within my adult life is that meditation, I often say like meditation feels like something that should have been taught to me as a kid that was almost as important as reading and writing. So I'm wondering, I'm talking specifically, and I'm imagining that there are parents here who are speaking specifically from a religious context. How do you walk the line between encouragement for something like meditation and wandering into the realm of potential indoctrination?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think you can pretty thoroughly present a child with the opportunity to learn to know a spiritual path without pushing it on them, and while reminding them that it's for them to choose. And when I teach the kids here, I always try to emphasize that we're sharing with you what Zen Buddhism is like. I think it's valuable, but it is for you to choose whether you want to follow this path or a different path or no path at all. And I think it's good to encourage kids to check out other religious paths that they're not familiar with. We often get school groups coming here and Christian groups coming here because they're studying other religions, and I think that's really commendable. Just sharing a lot of ideas and letting them choose, I think, is important. Yeah.
I guess it's just like I think of all the benefit that meditation has, and it's this practice of fundamentally being self-aware. I could just see as a parent like seeing a child disinterested in that and being kind of worried, like, oh, my child is not interested in this very like, fundamentally self-aware kind of practice. But I'm not a parent, so hopefully this answer is helpful to other people.
Yeah, and children are all different. With my own kids and other kids I've taught, sometimes they might be at a stage where they're really interested and they want to try it out, and other times they're not interested at all. So you just kind of wait for the opportunities and wait for what they're ready for. And, yeah. Yes?
Yeah, piggyback on your comment. So I think it's interesting. Children are actually natural meditators. They're always doing it. They're always present. And one of the things that I found most helpful in my practice with my kids is just noticing what they're already doing, because they're really great teachers at this. Like they are so far more advanced than myself in being able to kind of come in and come home. So kids they naturally do it. We just kind of have to help them see what they're doing.
Yeah, that's really well said. Thank you. Yes.
My name's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I wanted to say my high ideals have totally crumbled. And that to me feels like humility. So that's what our kids are teaching us. They're just teaching us that judgment is painful.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I discovered becoming a parent.
Yeah, a lot of humility. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I've raised or helped my son all of his life. His mother was either a student or a professional nurse anesthetist. And she kept taking on more and more responsibilities. She started testifying on court cases. She started teaching and traveling to teach. So she didn't have much time for him. And she was very organized and didn't have patience for his ability to forget everything that he was supposed to do. I also had ADD, so I understood him. The best time we had was when I was in my Shambhala seminary during the summer, and he was with me all the time. And he didn't like hanging out with the other kids, teens in their program. He liked working with adults. And he learned a lot from adults. And he asked me for two things he wanted to do. He said he wanted to learn to meditate. and he wanted to fire off the cannon that was used every morning, and announcing like the beginning of the day. So he had one problem with each thing. With learning to meditate, we went into this huge tent where we held our practice. And as he sat on his stool like this, he kept spinning around.
Mm-hmm.
And the cannon was a fairly simple problem. When he first tried it, he got a powder burn on his side of his face.
Oh,
That went away quickly.
yeah.
And now I'm a retired nurse. He's a nurse in northern Michigan. His wife's a nurse. He has a lot of responsibility, works every night, and is responsible for anything going wrong in the whole hospital. So he's always under some stress. So I keep in touch, and I have a large canoe. He has a small one. We want to trade because my wife can't help me carry the large canoe.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives are very interlocked, and it's the closest I am to everyone, including my wife.
Yeah. Yeah, your closeness to your adult children and how that changes, that's a whole different subject and a whole different, beautiful, sometimes difficult thing that can go on. That would be worthy of another talk. Thank you. And, oh yes.
Thank you for your talk. I appreciated it, and it brought up a lot to like reflect on and feel. I wanted to offer up a story that I've been thinking about a lot from Zen and parenting, and I think a lot about actually like suffering and giving birth and having expectations, because when I had my daughter, I was like, I did not want to have a C-section. I had a lot of ideas about working with like nurse midwives and other things, and my doctor said, I would be shocked. You would have a very low risk pregnancy, all of these things. And then when I ended up giving birth, everything went wrong, and I was there for a week, and I ended in an emergency C-section. And it was a really hard thing, but the part that I connected with Buddhist practice is, after that I remember the first thing we did when we were ready to leave the house is we went to Target, and I was looking around and I saw all of these parents, and I was like, oh, you gave birth. You gave birth. I mean, like, how are you all just walking around with your children? And it was just like this like wellspring of like compassion that I don't know if I've ever quite felt in the same way, like having this very deep suffering. Yeah.
Ah, how beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, these folks are walking around all the time, but we don't always see them. And you had a moment there where you were able to open up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hi, Ted.
Hi.
This is Ginny.
Hi, Jenny.
I'm coming to you from the basement, actually. I'm sitting here with Mike, and well, so just first of all, I wanted to give a shout out to Mike, and I see Bernie's in the Zendo there monitoring things, and I have deep appreciation for the people who have been handling the tech every week. It feels kind of weird to be part of the talk, but not part of the talk in the Zendo. So I appreciate the folks who are just kind of in the background taking care of the Sangha like that. I just wanted to say, Ted, that I really appreciate the talk today and the topic, even though I'm not a parent, from the perspective, especially of, I like this householder topic. It seems to me that our style of practice here is really exploring what it means to be a Zen practitioner and maybe a dedicated Zen practitioner while also not leaving home. and I have noticed, I have wondered if childcare duties are something that does pose an additional challenge, I think, for women who have children, to being in the Zendo.
Mhm.
Um, although I'm not trying to minimize the duties of fatherhood, I do know that studies show that in America, disproportionately childcare duties do fall to women, regardless of whether a woman who has children has a partner or not. And I know some of my friends who are practitioners that's a consideration in terms of their time and how often they can be in the Zendo, how often they can physically be there or attend retreats or that kind of thing. So I just wanted to say I appreciate, even though I'm not a mom, I appreciate from a woman's perspective that you're talking about this, and I hope we continue to have these kinds of like householder topics come up. So thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Maybe one more comment.
I'm wondering if I should go here, but I wanted to make an offering
Mhm.
as well. I've known this song since before I had children, and it's about the most meaningful song on the relationship of children to mystery and letting go. If I
Yeah.
can.
Oh, please.
So I don't know that it's originally, I actually, somebody can tell me the origination of this, but it's on children, and it was sung by Sweet Honey in the Rock.
Ah.
My teenager is upstairs and is about to get really embarrassed. If she gets Your children are not your children. They are the sons and the daughters of life, longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. They have their own thoughts. They have their own thoughts. You can house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in a place of tomorrow that you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You can strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you. Strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you. There's more.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's a good note to end on. So thank you all for your attention and for your participation. And we'll turn this over to our Doan, our esteemed Doan.